And this actually slides out.
Oh my.
And comes down so comes towards me and down so I can access it from my wheelchair.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my next video. Today we're meeting with Lisa. Hi Lisa.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Now, as always with the desert, we've got wind.
A little bit, we roll with it, right?
And I guess the big question that everyone sees right away is that you're in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And how did you end up in a wheelchair?
I've been using a wheelchair since I was 14. I had a very, very rare condition called an arteriovenous malformation. big mouthful, also known as an AVM, and it was just a cluster of blood vessels that had kind of formed in my spine right from birth, but didn't know about it, and one day it burst while I was sleeping, and I just woke up and I couldn't walk. And so I had an emergency surgery, and I was actually paralyzed from the neck down for a long time and slowly regained movement, but it stopped kind of chest down. So I'm paralyzed and use a wheelchair all the time. I can't walk or bear any weight through my legs. Yeah.
So you were just a young girl all your life waiting for your head, and that must have been pretty devastating.
Yeah, it was. The first few years were pretty, like you said, devastating, but I met some really great mentors even in the hospital, and sport was always a big part of my able-bodied life, and that really helped me in my recovery, and it took off right away. I got involved in wheelchair sports, and that certainly helped in my recovery and all the wonderful people that I met through it.
I imagine you like to just talk about it and get it out there.
Oh yeah, I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I like to educate people on what life is like, and so they can have empathy, but also understand that I want to be independent and do as much as I can on my own. So I love to share what I'm doing and getting up to with my van, and I love to help encourage other people too that are facing their own challenges.
And now you are very, very active in lots of things.
Yeah, I love the outdoors, and then I also love to be active, so I combine those two. I do a lot of outdoor sports now, so I downhill ski, I mountain bike, I kayak, I surf. Anything that gets the adrenaline going, I'm up for.
So you can still be in a wheelchair and be an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. I know quite a few of them.
So it slows you down. I mean, everything's a little bit slower, a little bit more difficult being in a wheelchair, but there are solutions for all of it.
Absolutely. I live independently, and I've found workarounds for everything. Even just a chore day like filling my water tank or taking out the garbage, there's extra challenges, but I don't see that as a deterrent. I always find a way to make things happen and make things work.
And so here you are living in your van, and what made you decide to do that?
It was a combination of a lot of things. Like I said, growing up, outdoors was a huge part of my life, and then I kind of put that aside when I started using a wheelchair. It just seemed so daunting. But then I had, a big career with wheelchair sports that ended after a shoulder injury. And as I was recovering from that shoulder injury, I just wanted to be outside as much as possible. Just the outdoors heals, especially for me. And so I started doing small car camping trips in my Honda Element. And I was burning up all of my holidays at work going on these car camping trips, and I did a big long one in 2020 before COVID hit. I did 3 months in my Honda Element, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And I thought I want to do this full time, but with a bit more comfort, so something bigger like a van that I could be inside and still in my wheelchair and have some extra comforts, and so it led to that.
If people are interested in following you and seeing the things you're doing, do you have any social media?
Yeah, I've got an Instagram account and a YouTube channel. They're both at the same handle. It's Keepin' It Wheel 306. And I like to showcase, the different things I do in van life, but also the outdoor adventures and the sports I get up to. And I try to keep it wheel, and show that, all these things are possible, but there are challenges. So I show the balance between the two of them.
Well, is it okay if we take a look around inside your van?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all fascinated.
Yeah. This lift is called the Super Arm, and it's probably a little different than most wheelchair lifts that people are used to seeing. They're probably used to a platform lift, like a big ramp that would fold down and the wheelchair user would roll on. I love this because it only takes up about this column in the doorway, and my doorway is still nice, wide, and open. And then it's just like the name, it's an arm that comes out. And then using these chains, I've got also these little hooks on my wheelchair. So I just clip in here. And I've got another controller here. And away I go.
Oh yeah, and you can park in just a regular parking place.
Yeah, I don't need a lot of space for parking. It's really just the length of my wheelchair. And then I just get it back kind of out of the way while I'm inside the van. It stays there.
So, did you buy the van like this, or did you do a conversion?
I bought the van just completely empty, and then I actually found somebody on the Canadian version of Craigslist, and he offered to build out my van for me. I had never seen his work. I didn't know anything about him, but it's worked out well. He was well within my budget, and I designed everything right down to the smallest detail to make it work for me, and this is the outcome. So this would be the kitchen area. I have about 6 feet of countertop with a fridge and lots of upper storage. In just one of these, I have something called a Reva shelf, but the shelf stays open, and then inside you can see it's got its own storage inside, and this actually slides out and comes down, so I can keep all the canned goods and whatnot on the top, but it comes towards me and down, so I can access it from my wheelchair. And then because I can't reach the cabinet, I've got these little strings on my cabinets, and then just pull it back down and tuck it away. So when you use a wheelchair, it's nice to get really close to the working surface. And so with the sink, I left the cabinet underneath empty, so I'm able to actually pivot my wheelchair in here, and then I can get closer to the sink. This is my cooktop, so it's 2-burner electric cooktop, and yeah, I can get my wheelchair right underneath and nice and close. I've got a 32-gallon water tank and 2-gallon gray water tank. The water tank is all in the back and in the garage, I call it. The design of the whole van was based around my mountain bike, which is back here under the bed. So it's 6 feet long. So I had to try to plan and work around that length for the entire thing. So that's what made me go with the queen size bed, is because it's under the bed. So that made me have to sleep lengthwise. And then from there, I was left with this much room for the kitchen.
And your bed's really tall.
It's really tall because the mountain bike is really tall, yeah. Right. And so probably the biggest question most people have is, how do I get into bed?
Exactly.
And that was a big problem that it took me a long time to figure out. I found an actuator, and so now all I do is I sit on the bench, push this button, and the lid of the bench actually rises up to the bed height. So the actuator that's inside the bench, here is this silver thing. It's just a standard product for a standing desk. And so if it's not a medical thing, so that means it was a lot cheaper than if this was actually, a special mobility device that was designed, it'd be probably 4 times the price. So, yeah, and then so once I'm up there, I just hop into the bed. You
mentioned earlier that you'd had a job. So how are you supporting yourself?
I worked as a mechanical engineer for 15 years until 2021, and it was funny because just as my van arrived, I was laid off just from a shortage of work. So since then, I've just been making best with picking up small projects, not necessarily engineering related, more with accessibility. I do a lot of public speaking, and then I also have rental income from back home.
I always ask, I've got to ask, people will be mad at me if I don't.
Yeah. How
do you shower and take a bath, go to the bathroom?
Okay, yeah, I originally also in this bench had a little porta potty, and in the very first year I didn't use it a single time. I'm able to get by using just pee bottles in the van, and then public bathrooms for the most part. So underneath my sink I've also got a tank for a water heater, and then it's got this hose. So when I'm surfing and I get out of the water, I just have this hose. If it's a cold day, I'll have the water heater plugged in, and then I have that hose running to just outside my sliding door. And then I'll just be outside, I'll rinse off, you know, all the salt water when I'm surfing. So this is my emergency toilet, the collapsible bucket that, you know, I just put a bag in, and then that would sit under the little opening. And then this is my temporary shower that I can set up. This is called a puppy pool. It's actually meant for washing your dog.
Yeah.
And I'll put it out on the floor here, and I'll just transfer it out of my wheelchair onto the floor inside there and use this as my shower. And I don't even need a shower screen or anything anymore, because I just am so low to the ground I can duck down, and it's high enough that it pretty much captures all the spray. I added that about 1.5 years ago, because before I was using gyms and campgrounds, but finding an accessible bathroom even in those places sometimes can be challenging. So this is really nice to have this to fall back on. This is I call it my cubby cabinet. And so I've got things like hats and jackets, tools and books. And the unique thing is that I can reach all these things from the inside, or if I'm outside, it's also open on the opposite side. So let's say I'm outside and I need a tool, I don't have to get on the lift and get back into the van and find it. Before I built all of the cabinetry, I actually spent about 6 months in the van with just the flooring and the bed and a temporary water faucet, really, because I wanted to get a good feel of how much space I needed for my wheelchair. You can see I've just got enough room here in the hallway, and I wanted to know how high I could reach for things. And then I realized I needed a spot that I could turn my wheelchair around. So I'm stuck in one spot. So at the entrance, I added some more flooring over what would normally be the step. Here's where I do all of my meal prep, all the chopping and everything would be here. Or
just at the right height.
Yeah, or that's where I'd eat. Or if I've got a friend over, they could sit on the bench and I'll sit here and we can play cards or something like that.
Well, you must have controls.
Yes.
Hand controls.
Yeah. So under the steering wheel, I have just a push and pull hand control system. It's pretty simple. It just goes right down and attaches to the actual brake and accelerator pedals.
Tell us again, you have a YouTube channel. Tell us again what that is.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is Keeping It Wheel 306. I spend my winters in Southern California, and then summers I spend back in Canada, and there's just mosquitoes, unbelievably, they're so bad. So I've got a screen here, and it was an extra challenge because my lift, most people would just have a screen with like Velcro or magnets, but with my lift, I wasn't able to, you know, have a divider here. So I built this little sliding screen.
Nice.
And so it would close off like that. But that was just another little challenge, was figuring out a way to still have a screen door when I've got my wheelchair lift at. And then I've just got a little outdoor table that is attached to my wheelchair lift, and it's just the right size that, you know, I can sit and have your appetizers or whatever out here, and it doesn't take up any space, and it just folds up nicely against this little area here. So this is the garage, which is probably still the biggest work in progress. This is where the bike lives, and back home in the summer, I run an adaptive mountain bike club, so I'm always hauling different bikes around, and I really wanted to make this space versatile for hauling different sized objects. I've got my paddle for my surfboard just hanging in there. It's hung by a Home Depot bucket, which isn't the usual use for a bucket in van life, but it works. And then my bed is actually able to lower and raise. It can come down to about this height. Each 4 corners has an actuator, an electric actuator. And that's again so I can change what I haul around in this space. I can lower the bed or make it as high as it can possibly go. So I have something called access tracks. So these are just plastic sheets. And if I'm on parking in a spot that's really soft dirt or gravel, I will pull these out.
Oh, wow.
And
so you've got a long distance.
Yeah, I have, what do I have? I have 11 little square rectangular pieces, so that's, I think, almost 20 some feet. And so if I am at a beach that doesn't have accessibility, I could do something called a caterpillar, where you put some down and then, you know, pull the ones from behind you and put them in front of you and just kind of make a pathway as I go. So I can unload the bike easy. I just use gravity and it comes out, and I hold the brakes to kind of control how quickly it comes out. So to load my bike, I built these ramps. It was actually a fence post. It was a square fence post that I've chopped in half lengthwise and then in half again. And so I've got 4 of them, and I just would align them like that when the bike is out. And I've actually got a winch underneath my bed.
Oh.
So I'd attach the winch to the bike, and the winch pulls it up the ramps nice and easy. So this is where my water tank is. It used to be up this high, and then it would jog down this cabinet. So all that space in the middle was not accessible for me. So this past summer I chopped it all off, made it one level, and then I added a slide out here so I can pull it out and reach things all the way.
Oh yeah.
It comes way out. So now I have access to all that stuff. Before,
Right.
I had to take my bike out and then crawl into that space to be able to access all this storage space.
Wow.
I just built this on the weekend, actually, just a really quick and easy, cheap outdoor table for my propane stove. So I've got a 2-burner propane stove here, and I plop it on here, and I use that if I want to cook outdoors, and even more outdoors than just the sliding door open, or if solar isn't really keeping up because I have an electric cooktop. It's good to have a backup with propane and a nice space to use it.
So you're being electric, using your inside stove is electric. You must have quite a bit of solar.
I don't have a ton of solar. I've got 300 watts of solar, 200 amp hours of battery, lithium. So I would definitely upgrade that, but yeah, it gets by if I'm, using conservative with using the cooktop. And in Southern California, it's usually pretty sunny. It's just when you get those rainy days that are stretched out in a row.
So Lisa, it's just amazing what you've accomplished. You haven't let life kind of dealt you a bad hand, but you've played it super, super well.
I feel like I've had 3 lives already, and probably entering another chapter pretty soon, but I love to be outdoors and doing those adrenaline activities, and I like to share it with people to help motivate them to go on their own adventures. So if you feel like following along, you can find me on Instagram or YouTube at KeepingItWheel306.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your home and your life with us. It's I think we're all better off for it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So folks, if you're go check out our channel, do that right now. And if you got anything out of this video, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.